You can see where it'll say live. Bismillah. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh. Wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan 'abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. يا أيها الذين آمنوا واتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا والنساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا واتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم يغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أما بعد. After praising Allah Azza wa Jalla Jalaluhu and saying the peace and blessings upon our beloved messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we greet our beloved brothers and sisters with the greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, wa alhamdulillah Azza wa Jalla in His infinite mercy and generosity has brought us once again together. Alhamdulillah, wa alhamdulillah, even though we are far from one another. And we thank Allah Azza wa Jal for the good of the technology. And after that, I would like to thank our beloved brothers at Masjid Ahlul Qur'aan wa Sunnah and our beloved Imam, Abu Abdullah, Hafidullah Ta'ala, and our beloved brother, Abu Hafsa, Hafidullah Ta'ala, and all of the brothers and the administration who were involved in putting this conference together. Alhamdulillah, wallahu alhamd, and we ask that Allah Azza wa Jal make it a very heavy deed and an act for them. Ala mizan fil akhir, ameen. With that being said, I was asked to talk about how to attain our goals in the month of Ramadan. How to attain our goals in the month of Ramadan. And we know that when we look at an issue like this, there are many goals that the brothers and sisters we want to set for ourselves in this tremendous month that is upon our heels. But before doing so, it's imperative that we put in place the conditions for having our acts and our statements, our deeds and our statements accepted by Allah Azza wa Jalla Jalaluhu. Some of the Mashaykh of Ahlul Sunnah, they said in order for our statements and actions to be accepted by Allah Azza wa Jalla, one of the conditions that have to be in place is Sidqul Azim. Sidqul Azim. And this is true determination. So the believer has to be truly determined to carry out this act of worship for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jalla Jalaluhu. Now, this Sidqul Azim is something that is not seen in the beginning. but we know that once it is in place in the heart, that it manifests itself. We find it in the Quran. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَلَمَّا أَسْلَمَ وَتَلَّهُ لِلْجَبِينِ وَنَادَيْنَهُ يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ. Excuse me. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, so they both submitted. Now, meaning Ibrahim and Ismail. And Ibrahim, he took Ismail and laid him down upon his forehead. And then Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَنَادَيْنَهُ عَنْ يَا Ibrahim. And we called out, Ya Ibrahim. He said, قَدْ صَدَقْتَ رُحْيَا. Allah Azza wa Jalla prevented Ibrahim from slaughtering his son Ismail, alayhi salatu wasalam. And the Masjid Ahlul Sunnah, they said, what was the engine or the motivated factor that pushed Ibrahim to do this thing? Of course, it was the obedience to Allah Azza wa Jalla Jalaluhu. This is known. But they said in his heart was the sidqul azim, this true determination to carry out the commands of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And so what we see is the manifestation of it, to the point where when he was about to do it, Allah Azza wa Jalla said, and so we called out to Ibrahim to stop him. And when Ibrahim turned and looked, he found a ram caught in the bushes, as Allah Azza wa Jalla had to replace Ismail with a ram. So Allah Azza wa Jalla says in his noble book, Inna kadhalika najzi al-muhsinin. Indeed, this is how we reward the good doers. Allah Azza wa Jalla aids and helps those people who want to carry out his commands, those people who have in their heart this sidqul azim. May Allah Azza wa Jalla place it in us. Ameen. The scholars of Ahlul Sunnah, they said, what happens inside of the believer once this particular true determination enters his heart? They said it causes him to abandon laziness, and it causes him to abandon being neglectful, and it causes him to exert himself now in making his statements and his actions harmonize. Now they become one. So that which he says is upon the haqq, and the way he acts is upon the haqq. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us from the truthful believers. Ameen. The second condition that the Mashaykh bring of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah is ikhlas. And this is sincerity of intention. They mention about this, they said, indeed, the believer has the true intent to see the face of Allah Azza wa Jal, and this is also the driving or the motivated factor in them achieving their goals in this life and in the hereafter, that they want to see the face of Allah Azza wa Jal, Jalla Jalaluhu, and that their statements and actions are done purely for Him, hoping to see His face. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says in His noble book in Surah Insan, He says, إِنَّمَا تُدْعِمُكُمْ لِلْوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءٍ وَلَا شُكُورًا. Excuse me. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says that the believers, they say when they feed the people, even though they themselves are in need, they said, indeed, we feed you لِلْوَجْهِ اللَّهِ, just for the face of Allah. لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءٍ. We don't want any reward. We don't want any pay. وَلَا شُكُورًا. Nor do we want to be thanked. Now, so this is the mode of the believer, is that when they do righteous deeds, they have to be doing this deed and saying this statement as a means of seeing Allah's face, not wanting any reward from anyone, and not wanting someone to say shukran, jazakallah khair. They're not looking for this, but rather they just want to see the face of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the Mashaykh of Ahl Sunnah, they said this is the behavior of the righteous. And Mujahid, he said about this in the Tafsir Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, Wallahi, he said, I swear by Allah, they, the believers, do not say this with their tongues. They do not say this with their tongues. They don't say with their tongues, we're not doing this as a means of attaining some reward, or for someone to say to us, thank you, Jazakallah khair, shukran, hakala. We're not saying it for this reason. Mujahid said that the believers, they don't say it. He said, but rather Allah Azza wa Jal knows what is in their hearts, and He commends them for it, because they're mentioned in this ayat in the Qur'an. And Mujahid said, indeed, this is what every seeker who wants to get close to Allah should be seeking. And that is to see the face of Allah Azza wa Jal, Jalla Jalaluhu. So first we mentioned the Sidqul Azim. And now we mentioned Ikhlas. Now after this, Al-Mutaba'ah. And this is what the Mashayikh have said, that is the conformity to the Sharia. Now I'm doing things according to the Qur'an and the Sunnah. And we're going to add Fahm Salaf Salih, with the understanding of the righteous predecessors. The Mashayikh Ahlul Sunnah, they said that this is done in conformity to the Sharia, from that which Allah Azza wa Jal has ordered His believing slaves, and that worship will not be and cannot be accepted except through it. Except through it, meaning the Sharia. Allah Azza wa Jal says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayat 48. لِكُلِّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, indeed for every nation we have given them a Sharia. وَمِنْهَاج. Allah Azza wa Jal has given every nation a set of laws and a methodology on how those laws should be applied. And that's with us. Now, so in order for our deeds and statements to be accepted, it has to be in conformity to the Sharia. And it has to be in conjunction with the Sunnah of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And inshallah ta'ala, this is clear. After these conditions are met and established, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, then we set our sights on looking at the different goals that we want to attain in the month of Ramadan. And from those goals that we would like to achieve in that tremendous month, there are many. Wallahi, we don't even have the time to mention them all today. But we know that each person has something that he wants to attain in this month. And with that being the case, I would think that the most important thing to us are the goals that Allah and His Messenger set for us. And what we're going to call them are the major goals that we have to attain in the month of Ramadan. Those goals that we have to be concerned about. From them is a taqwa. Now, from the major goals that we have to attain in the month of Ramadan is true fear of Allah and having purity in our worship to Him. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum siyamu kama kutiba alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tahtaqun. Allah Azza wa Jalla said in Surah Al-Baqarah, O you who believe, fasting was prescribed for you just like it was prescribed for those before you, la'allakum tattaqun, in hopes that you may attain a taqwa. In hopes that you may attain a taqwa. And this is providing that those conditions that we mentioned earlier are in place. Now, because everyone in the month of Ramadan will not leave that month fearing Allah Azza wa Jal as he should be feared. But rather it has to be done upon knowledge. Now, he has to know the things that have to be in place in order for him to attain his goal. So whatever it is that he has to learn, now whatever it is that he or she has to learn in order to attain this thing, taqwa, then that's what we have to do. Excuse me. Also, we find from this that when we mention these ayat and those hadith that will be mentioned, inshallah ta'ala, we find that our religion is not just a religion of good feelings and ideas and opinions, but rather it's upon burhan wa dalil. As Allah Azza wa Jalla said, كل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن تبعاني سبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, say to them, O Muhammad, I call to Allah upon basira. Now the Sharia, clear knowledge, clear proof. Now here's the thing. Allah Azza wa Jalla tests us in this ayat. Allah puts a test on us in this ayat. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was told to say, Ana wa min tab'ani, I and those who follow me. And those of us who claim to follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam upon his sunnah, then know that it is for us to follow him in knowledge. That we don't do anything based upon our whims and our desires, but rather what we establish as it relates to this religion is established upon knowledge. So he said, Ana wa min tab'ani. He said, I and those who follow me. And this is how we understand our religion. Second, from the major goals that are set for us, that we should be trying to attain in this tremendous month, is forgiveness from Allah Azza wa Jalla, and maghfirah. Now, forgiveness from Allah Azza wa Jalla, Jalla Jalaluhu. In a hadith collected by Ibn Hibban, rahimahullah ta'ala, that the Shaykh al-Albani has graded a sahih. And it was narrated by Abi Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He said, indeed, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Sa'id al-Minbar, he ascended the minbar. فقال آمين آمين آمين. Abi Hurairah, he said, indeed, the Messenger of Allah, he ascended the minbar. He went up upon the minbar. And while he was walking up on the minbar, he said, Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. Kila ya Rasulullah, innaka hina sa'idta al-minbar. Kuntu Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. They said, O Messenger of Allah, when you were ascending the minbar, we heard you say, Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam called, he said, Inna Jibreel atani faqal min adraka shahru Ramadan wa lam yukfir lahu fadakhala an-nar fa'ab'adahu lahu qul amin faqultu amin. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, indeed it was Jibreel, and he came to me and he said, whoever grasps or enters the month of Ramadan and he doesn't attain any forgiveness, fadakhala nar, he will be in the fire and he will be far away from Allah Azza wa Jalla. And the Mashaykh of Ahlul Sunnah, they said that this distance that's being mentioned here in this hadith, it means that he'll be far from Allah's mercy. So the verse says, he said, فَقُلْتُ Amin. He said, so I said, Amin. Ya ikwa akwat. Wallahi, this is extremely important. And this is why we were presenting the fact that these are from those major goals that we have to set in the month of Ramadan. And from them is being forgiven by Allah Azza wa Jalla Jalaluhu. The Prophet said that Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam said, whoever grasps or they enter into the month of Ramadan, or they get to see the month of Ramadan, they enter it and they finish it, and they haven't attained forgiveness from Allah, فَدَخَلَ النَّارِ, we should be thinking deeply now. This is aiding us in setting our goals right now. We're just a day or so away from the month. Now, and we can't even imagine that a person would enter into the month of Ramadan not seeking forgiveness from Allah Azza wa Jal. Not seeking forgiveness from Allah Azza wa Jal. Not even saying on his tongue, Rabbana akfirli dhanubi wa akina adhab an-nar. This person wouldn't even say, oh my Lord, forgive me and save me from the punishment of the fire. Now, like this hadith is mentioning, oh Allah, forgive me and save me from the punishment of the fire. Now, so this is from those major goals. And of course, there's more to the hadith, but we wanted to just extract this piece. Bi-idhnillah ta'ala. Jazakallah khair, barakallah feek. The third major goal that we should set, inshallah ta'ala, is to either improve or develop or establish our relationship with the Qur'an. Because each one of us is at a different level in our relationship with the Qur'an. So some of us have to improve on our relationship. Some of us have to develop a relationship. And some of us have to re-establish our relationship with the Qur'an. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned to us in His noble book showing its importance. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينة من الهدى والفرقان. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, the month of Ramadan, in which He sent down the Qur'an in it, a guidance for mankind, and a clear proof for the guidance, and a criterion. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla Jalaluhu not only commanded us to fast in this month, but rather because Allah sent down the Quran in this month, it shows its virtue and its importance. That this is a book that deserves to be read, particularly in that month. In general, all the time, but particularly in the month of Ramadan. And so the Quran, if it is taken close, if the relationship has to be rebuilt or reestablished, then we have to do that. Or if there is an issue of developing, for the person who hasn't been reading the Quran at all, he has to develop a relationship with the Book of Allah. And those who are continuous readers, they just have to improve on their relationship with the Book of Allah. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to aid us and cause us to be from among those who love His book and who make the Quran our companion in and outside of the month of Ramadan. Now, these are some of the major goals that we have to focus on first and that have to be set above everything else, above all of the other things that we would like to do now and complete in this tremendous month. And there's a lot of things. Some people, they want to give sadaqah. Now, and some people want to help the poor. And some people want to do this. And there's a lot of different things. But from those things, wallahi wa billahi, make sure that we focus upon these major things, these major goals, and then we add the other ones on bit by bit, piece by piece, hoping that Allah Azza wa Jalla will accept it from us and that they will cause us to be entered into Jannah. Now, after we have made clear what these major goals are, I think it's upon us that we talk about the generality of setting our goals and whatever goals that you have in mind. And each person is different. Now, you may find the brother who he has the money to give in sadaqah and one may not. And so his thing is that he wants to begin to stand up at night, or someone who wants to make the 2 rak'ah before Fajr that he may not have been making at a particular time. So it's just small little things like this. So It's upon the believer to be keen, right? To pay close attention to himself, to herself, because each one of us is different. Now, and there is a competition, but not really. Now, in certain cases. So, as we mentioned, it's upon the believer to be smart. And we're going to use this SMART as a acronym. Now, SMART, to help us to understand how we can attain our goals better. The first thing that must be done is that I believe, and this is my opinion, and it's a position that I've gotten from some of the mashayikh, and that is we should sometimes write our goals down. Now, one is going to help us to remember. Now, it helps us to focus. Like the scholars mentioned, that the pen is connected to the eye. So whatever it is that you see yourself write down, it aids you in remembering, right? And holding on to that thing. So inshallah ta'ala, the first thing we should do is write down whatever it is that we want to complete in the month of Ramadan. And it brings with it a level of responsibility, yeah? And accountability to yourself, not to anyone else. Now, as we mentioned, the first thing that the believer should do is be clear. And this means that he has to be specific about what it is he wants to do. Now, so if he wants to read one page of the Qur'an a day, then he writes this down. I want to read one page. And then some of the people, like we mentioned, are a little better in their reading, so they can read a juz a day. You know, now you can find the Quran broken up in a juz. So a person can carry just a juz a day or read a juz a day every morning so that he reaches his goal. So the first thing is that we have to be clear about what it is we want to do. And as we mentioned earlier, everyone is different. Second, whatever it is that we choose, it has to be something that can be measured. So it has to be measurable. As an example, we mentioned a person will read one page or one juz a day, right? And giving this number gives the person something to strive for, right? Because, and well, we'll get to that. Given the number, if it's I'm going to read one a day, two a day, three a day, now this gives you something to strive for, right? And it allows you to keep a record of what it is you're doing. It allows you to keep a record of your progress. I read one page today, I have to read one page tomorrow. Now, and this will aid in the increasing of Iman. Because every time you accomplish something good for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, you're going to find that your Iman is increased. Right? And it's going to aid you in, again, keeping a record of what it is you're doing. Third, making sure whatever you choose is attainable, that you can do that thing. Now, making sure that it's something easy. Yassiru wa la ta'asiru. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, make things easy and don't make things difficult on you. On you. A lot of times we hear this hadith and we think about making it easy on other people, not making it difficult on other people. No, and this make it easy on yourself and don't make it difficult. Now, don't say you want to read 3 juz and you know you only have the ability to read 1. Now, maybe in the middle of Ramadan, your Iman starts to soar, you get real hyped up, and so you grab another juz, and you end up reading 2 juz a day. But wallahi, in the beginning, make it easy on yourself. Sahil jiddan, make it extremely easy on yourself. Something that you know that you can achieve. Now, something that you know that you can attain. Fourth, we have to be realistic. Now, each one is connected to the other. Now, You can't get all hyped up because your brother or your sister is doing this and doing that, and they in the month of Ramadan they're giving sadaqah. They're over here, they feeding the people who are needy as it relates to food, and they're doing it, and you're trying to run behind them, trying to keep up. Well, that's not your fadl. That's not your thing. Now, do be realistic. Now, maybe you can't run and help give out food, but maybe you're the one who buys the food so that it can be given out. Maybe that's easier for you. Be realistic in the actions that you're trying to use to get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal, so you don't suffer from burnout. When we're not realistic, we start to burn out. We start out real strong and hyped and moving, and then after a while, we start chugging along, and things start looking real bad. And not even before the middle of Ramadan, it's the second week of Ramadan, we're not doing that thing anymore. No, you want to be able to remain consistent. And the best way to do that is to be realistic. May Allah Azza wa Jal aid us and help us. Ameen. Lastly, we have to put a time of completion on our goals, right? Because Ramadan is 29 to 30 days. So the time is set by Allah. Now, you say to yourself, okay, this is the first day of Ramadan. I'm going to start reading the Qur'an. Now, I'm going to try to finish it. The objective is to finish it. That's what I want to do. Not wajib, but it's from the khayr. It's something that's emphasized. And you try to finish the Qur'an. So Allah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked Jiddi. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Saddidu wa qaribu. He said, aim for the target and come as close as you possibly can. Now, we want to aim, we want to have a time limit set. I want to finish the Quran in 29 or 30 days. Now, whichever one Allah decrees. So we aim. And Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, normally when a person aims, they aim for the bullseye. They want to hit the red mark. The intent is to hit the red mark. He said, but you find that when the people aim and they let the arrow go, that it just hits the target in its white part. He said, indeed, if you hit the target, you have achieved that which you sought out. Now, it's when you miss the target altogether. But if you're hitting the target, you may not hit the bullseye, meaning you may not finish the entire Quran by the 29th or 30th day. But you've been reading consistently. Now, and you have a lot of it done. And there may be only 2 or 3 juts left. So you didn't hit your target, or you didn't hit the bullseye, but wallahi wa billahi, you hit the target. And that's the true objective. Now, but we want to try and do the best, right? We know the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Inna Allah kataba ihsana ala kulli shay. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, indeed, Allah has written upon everything excellence. Excellence. So Ibn Taymiyyah, he said, this shows that the believer is always trying to do his best in the beginning of an act, in the middle of that act, and when he finishes in the most excellent way. And so we ask that Allah Azza wa Jal make us from his most excellent servants. Ameen. Allah Azza wa Jal, he mentions to us in his noble book, Min amilin, excuse me, Min amil, ومن يعمل من صالحين والصالحات من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فأولئك يدخلوا الجنة ولا يظلمون. Excuse me. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَمَن يَعْمَلْ مِن صَالِحَاتِ. Whoever does righteous deeds, whether they are from the men or the women, وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنُونَ, and they are true believers, فَأُولَٰئِكَ يَدْخُلُونَ جَنَّةً. then Allah Azza wa Jal will cause them to enter into paradise. وَلَا يُتْلَمُونَ nakir. Subhanallah. Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, and they will not be wronged, not even in the least, not even in the respect to a speck on a date. Allah Azza wa Jal will give them that which they deserve, providing that they are believers. Excuse me. And I just want the brothers and sisters to know that, because you hear me sniffing and maybe even coughing, that this is my allergies, and it's not anything other than that. Alhamdulillah, wa alhamd. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to protect us, and those of us who have become sick with the coronavirus, we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to heal them and to heal them, leaving no traces of that sickness behind. I mean, lastly, the last thing and from the most important things, and we save the best for last. Now, in this case, this last thing is actually the first thing that we should do. And this is when we venture out to attain our goals, we have to first ask Allah Azza wa Jal, Jalla Jalal. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says to us, وَقَالْ رَبَّكُمُ Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, وَقَالْ رَبَّكُمْ أَدْعُونِي أَسْتَجِيبَ لَكُمْ. Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, excuse me. Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, and say, call on your Lord and I will answer them. And this is all that we need. This is all that we need to know. Now, that Allah Azza wa Jal has promised, Astajib lakum, I will answer you. I will answer them. So we call on Allah Azza wa Jal, and Allah will aid us. And then after that, the only thing that is expected of us is a sa'ah, is to strive for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Inshallah ta'ala, we were brief in that which we brought. And this is what Allah Azza wa Jal decreed. And we pray that Allah Azza wa Jal makes it sufficient enough for us as a reminder. And we ask once again that Allah Azza wa Jal protects us and keeps our families strong and healthy. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to heal those who have become sick. And we ask that Allah Azza wa Jal to give Jannat A'la to those from among us who have passed away. We ask that Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive us, as there is none who can forgive us but Him. And we ask that Allah Azza wa Jal to protect us from the trials of life and death, and that He gives us the good in this life and in the hereafter, and He protects us from Masih Dajjal. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.